Please comment where you are watching in the world. I kept telling myself it was just a normal night out. A blind date supposed to be awkward small talk, maybe a soggy sandwich, not a full-body flashback. That's what I repeated as I stared at the cafe door on Mass Avenue, counting the exits, 2 up front, 1 by the bathrooms, the alley latch that sticks in winter, like I was inventorying lifeboats. Bright lights, chipped tables. The hum of the espresso machine flattened everything into background noise, like a highway you only notice when it stops. It should have made me feel safe. It didn't. My stomach was already doing that Boston winter thing, tight braced, before he even walked in. A group of northeastern kids huddled over laptops. Some guy in a Bruins beanie grabbed a to-go cup. 2 older women argued about a parish raffle. I watched the door open and close, and then him. For half a second I thought I was being punked. Same build. Same haircut that tries to look accidental. Same black jacket with the collar flipped like he'd practiced in a mirror. And then the smile, that burned in my nerves smile, soft at the corners like he'd learned it from a textbook about trust. My throat went dry so fast I could hear it. Coincidences happen, kid. That's what I told myself as he spotted me and raised a hand, like we did this every Thursday. People look alike. Boston's small. But the air in my chest turned brittle when he sat down and leaned forward on his elbows with that same economy of movement. He didn't just resemble my ex. He moved like him. My eyes snapped to the scar above his right eyebrow. Tiny crescent, same exact spot I used to trace with a fingertip in a different life. My heart did a weird little skip like the green line hitting a bad rail. "Hey," he said. The voice was a match sample. Same pitch, same half-second pause before the last word of a sentence, like he was dropping a coin in a jar. "Hey," I said and counted, 1 exit, 2, 3. My palms were damp. The cafe noise dimmed as if someone had put cotton in my ears. All I could hear was the rhythm under the table, tap, 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 a pattern my body recognized before my head caught up. The old rhythm. The one that used to keep me up at night, measuring anger in beats per minute. When the barista called a name wrong, Carmelin? He couldn't help himself. He turned, smiled, and corrected it with that calm, patient condescension I'd spent years choking on. "Carmelina," he said, gentle like he cared, sharp like he wanted the room to know he knew. The exact cadence. My ex's cadence. "Wicked off," my brain whispered. "Wicked, wicked off." He ordered without asking me, a large Americano, 2 shots, splash of room-temp water. My ex's exact drink. He added almost cheerfully, "And she'll have a hot chocolate, no whipped cream." My stomach lurched because there it was, the tiny control, the way he framed knowing as caring. I opened my mouth to argue and swallowed the protest like a pill. "Fine," I said. The word felt like a bruise. He launched into stories in that casual way that makes you forget you're not in them. Growing up near a certain rotary. Hating a certain tea stop because the turnstiles stick. That weird food combo, salt and vinegar chips dipped in honey mustard, that only my ex loved. He mentioned a band, tiny local, plays basement shows in JP, and how he'd been following them for years. It rang like a bell because I'd turned my playlists private after I left, and still, there were my obscure tracks showing up on a stranger's lips. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket, and I didn't look. I suddenly didn't want to see if the app had suggested a music match. His jacket smelled like clean cotton and steel, my ex's detergent brand, right down to the metallic after scent that clung to the zipper. My mouth filled with the taste of coins. I scanned for differences as if I could magic up safety. Maybe the ears were a little flatter, maybe the shoes were cheaper, maybe the scar was slightly shorter. The longer I looked, the fewer differences I could invent. The more he spoke, the more my rational voice shrank. He tapped. Tap, tap, tap. I knew the pattern. 2 slow, 1 fast, long pause. A lullaby of dread. He smiled like a substitute teacher trained to look non-threatening. "You still living around Porter?" he asked, too casual. I blinked. We'd never talked about neighborhoods. I hadn't put my cross street on my profile. The cafe went quieter in my head until all that remained was that metronome and the whine of the steamer pitching down. "Cambridge-ish," I lied. My hands were under the table already, gripping my own thighs hard enough to leave nail marks. "Count something," I told myself. "Count surface screws. Count the bubbles in the cheap tabletop lacquer. Count, or you'll float right out of your skin." He cleared his throat, that exact little gravelly catch before a sentence that used to signal a mood shift. "You ever miss the Wednesday farmer's market?" he asked. My spine went ice. That was my ex's place to scope. The exact midweek market he'd liked because it was quieter, less chance of bumping into anyone we knew when he didn't feel like being seen. The voice in my head switched from polite Boston to the one with teeth. Nope. Not today, kid. Something primitive in me started stacking facts like sandbags. He orders the same drink, corrects the same way, taps the same rhythm, knows the band, knows the market, wears the smell, tells the same, grew up near the tracks story with the same pause before tracks, like he's savoring the clang of it. He laughed, and the sound skittered down my back like a bottle rolling in a trunk. "You okay?" he asked, head tilt perfect. He did the gentle savior look my ex weaponized whenever I flinched. I nodded, which is what you do when your body has decided it needs to make it to the door without triggering a chase. He reached for his drink, and his knuckles brushed mine. My stomach flipped so hard I thought I might aim for the bathroom, just to have a place to come apart. He saw it, of course he saw it, and let his fingers rest on the table, unfazed, tapping again like a Morse message only he and my nervous system could read. "I'll be right back," he said, standing, and placed his phone face down, careful like always. He moved toward the bathrooms, his hand grazing the back of my chair with possessive unconsciousness. A song shifted over the speakers, some indie thing with a drum line that matched his tap pattern, and I could feel myself leaving my body. Run. My chair scraped. The sound felt like an alarm. I grabbed my bag, counted the steps to the door, 7 to the register, 4 to the rubber mat, 2 to the brass strip. The bell chimed, and the cold hit me so clean I gulped it like oxygen. Outside, the night had that razor Boston clarity, wind off the Charles slicing my cheeks. I didn't look back. If I looked, I'd freeze. I booked it, cut down a side street past a stack of dead Christmas trees, and a trash barrel that sighed when the wind caught it, and I didn't stop until my key was in my building's front door. Inside, the hallway smelled like curry and laundry heat. Every bolt slid home with a heavy, blessed click. I sat on the floor against my apartment door and felt the thud of my heartbeat reverberate through wood. The quiet roared. I dropped my head to my knees and started cataloging to make sense of what I'd just run from. Scar, right crescent, same. Tap pattern, 2 slow, 1 fast, pause. Drink, Americano, 2 shots, room temp water. Correction tick, targeted, public. Story beats, same neighborhood, same weird snack, same band. Voice, pitch twin, micropauses identical. Smell, the detergent he'd sworn by, the one that never fully washed out. Maybe trauma makes doubles out of strangers. That's the generous take. But the playlist thing? The market? The smell? No. That's study. That's a mask sewn stitch by stitch from old skin. I stood and paced, counting the kitchen tiles, checking the window locks, checking the oven, counting again. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Buzzed again. I picked it up, a little unsteady, and opened the dating app first to block him. His profile photo was the kind of inoffensive nice that means, which man is this in a lineup? His bio had nothing real. I hit block. It asked if I was sure. I laughed, one sharp sound. Yeah, kid. I'm sure. Another buzz. Instagram this time. Follow request from Stairwell Ghost. The name made my throat tighten. My account's private, tight as a fist. I clicked through to the requesting profile. 2 posts. Both old flyers for that obscure band. Both liked by accounts I recognized from my ex's circle, the ones that had stayed mutuals on the quiet. The bio said, basements, stadiums. My ex's exact line. I locked my phone and set it face down like it was a hot pan. The apartment felt too small, too knowable. I turned on the bathroom fan just to have sound. In the mirror, I looked like a person who'd run 6 blocks and crawled out of the river. I washed my hands and smelled faintly that detergent again, phantom, in my head, or maybe in my coat from the bump of his sleeve. Not today, kid, I said to my reflection. Not today. I made tea I didn't drink, then moved it around my counter like a piece in a game I didn't remember the rules to. I texted Joe, my safest person, "You up?" and followed with, "Weird date. Not dangerous. Home." The lie was meant to keep her from grabbing her keys. She called anyway. I let it ring out. I couldn't make my mouth shape words yet without spilling. I picked up the phone again when the buzzing wouldn't quit and thumbed to my DMs. The ones I keep from strangers filtered out. There was one new request from a name I didn't recognize. The message preview showed 3 words and a winking emoji, and my spine went rigid because I knew the cadence before I read it. I tapped. Big salad night, winky face. It was nothing on paper. But that was our old inside joke, mine and my ex's. about the only safe dinner we'd agreed on in summertime when everything else became a fight. He'd texted on nights he wanted to pretend we were easy. Nobody else knew that phrase meant, don't argue. Just say yes. The sender's handle was the date's new name. The one with the inoffensive nice photo. He'd typed the old joke with the new mask on, like a magician palming a coin, expecting me not to trace the trick back to the hand. I stared until my eyes watered, until the words blurred. Then I hit block again, everywhere I could find. I turned off push notifications. I powered the phone down like I was lowering a body into water. Outside, the wind rose and rattled the old windows, a familiar Boston rattle that says, "You live here. You know this cold. You will be fine." I counted the locks one more time. I counted the breaths until my heart stopped vibrating. I lay on the couch with my shoes still on, listening for phantom taps in the heating pipes and the faint espresso hum still stuck in my head. When sleep finally came, it came light and jumpy. In the morning I'd change my routes. I'd wash my coat twice. I'd buy a detergent that smelled like nothing and everything else. But right then, in the narrow strip of night that felt like a hallway I had to walk, I whispered into the quiet, "Not today," and let the words settle like a bar across a door. I knew better, but loneliness is like rust. It eats through metal faster than you think. The profile looked clean, too clean. Perfect smile, casual pictures, nothing you could drag into Google and expose. She liked Motown deep cuts and posted about Detroit pizza wars like she was local. I told myself maybe, just maybe, it wasn't fake. Maybe I'd lucked out for once. But when I pulled into that near-empty diner lot off Gresham, with snow crusted up like ash along the curbs and only two salt-scarred sedans parked crooked under moaning light poles, my gut told me I'd stepped into a setup. I checked the app. Her last message, almost there, winky face, had come 20 minutes earlier. A little gray typing bubble flickered, then went blank. I stared at it like it owed me an answer. The air felt too wide open, too industrial, like the city had stripped its skin down to chain link and concrete. My breath fog disappeared. That's when the beater sedan rolled in slow, muffler coughing. 3 men peeled out like it was rehearsed. One tall and broad in a reflective security jacket. Another in a grease-dark mechanic coat. The third in a faded delivery hoodie, clipboard tucked under his arm like a prop. They spread out without speaking, triangulating the lot, their lines converging on me. The kind of choreography you don't mistake for coincidence. One of them flipped a coin, caught it, flipped again. Clink, against his palm, timed almost perfect with the diner's door chime, every time someone went in or out. Like they were syncing, like they had rhythm to their hunt. The fluorescent buzz overhead stuttered, caught, hummed back alive. My body felt 10 pounds heavier. I glanced at my phone again, desperate for a signal from her. The chat bubble blinked back to life, then sent nothing. Just a blank speech bubble. No text, no emoji. Empty. My chest went tight. Whoever was behind that profile wasn't in the building, wasn't in a car on the way. She was already here. She was them. Instinct lit my legs before thought did. I shoved my phone in my pocket and sprinted for the glass door. Boots slipping on salt dust, heart slamming like a loose hubcap. I caught the door just as the security jacket man shifted toward me. For 1 second his mouth twitched, like he was disappointed his line got broken. Then I was inside, the bell chiming sharp, the smell of fryer oil and burnt coffee wrapping me like a lifeline. The waitress barely looked up. "Sit anywhere." Her voice was bored, but I swear I saw her eyes flick past me to the men outside. I slid into a cracked vinyl booth, back to the wall, facing the lot. My lungs dragged air in ragged pulls. The coffee she poured sat steaming, untouched, as my hands clenched the ceramic for warmth. Out beyond the glass, the 3 of them lined up shoulder to shoulder under the sodium light. They didn't move. They just stared. A promise, not a threat. The coin flipped again, caught, the glint flashing against the light like punctuation. I tried to look casual, scrolling my phone, but my pulse gave me away. The app sat open like an accusation. I reread her earlier messages. She'd mentioned my old job title, word for word from my LinkedIn. She'd referenced a charity run I'd done years back that never made it onto social media. Breadcrumbs stolen from somewhere I'd thought was professional, safe. My throat went dry. This wasn't random. Someone had done homework. An hour dragged by. I stirred sugar into cold coffee, left it untouched. The men never wavered. Sometimes a car would pull in, headlights sweeping the lot, and for a moment their shadows broke. Then the car would leave, and the tableau reassembled. Triangular, patient. I waited them out like a deer waits out hunters. Finally, a truck rolled up loud and wide, blocking their line. I grabbed the moment, slapped cash on the table, and bolted to my car. My hands shook so hard I missed the key slot twice. The drive home was all mirrors. Every set of headlights behind me was them. Every turn signal I made, I held too long, checking if anyone followed. The night pressed heavy, industrial quiet punctuated by overpasses and the occasional rattle of freight on distant tracks. By the time I parked 2 blocks from my apartment and walked the rest, my bones ached like I'd carried something too heavy too long. Inside, I killed the lights and sat in the dark, phone face down. Morning came gray. The profile was gone, erased like chalk on wet pavement. No sorry, no explanation. Just vanished. I muttered into the silence, voice rough. I ain't dumb, but I ain't brave neither. That should have been the end. But when I finally flipped my phone over, one notification pulsed from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. Me silhouetted through the diner window, hands wrapped around coffee I never drank. The coin's clink still echoed in my ears. The city never looks more dangerous than when you're stuck in someone else's passenger seat. I told myself it was fine, just a first date moving to a quieter spot. Nothing unusual. Philly's loud, Philly's busy. A quieter bar made sense. But the second we pulled away from Broad Street, his car doors started talking to me. Click. At the first red light, all 4 locks slammed down in unison. He glanced over and smiled like he was proud. Don't worry, he said, his voice smooth as if he'd rehearsed. City's wild at night. Gotta keep my John safe. Green light. Clack. The locks released. He tapped the wheel, humming low. The hairs on my arms stood up. I told myself it was just a quirk, some habit. Philly drivers all got quirks, right? But the next light. Click. Locks down again. My chest tightened. I laughed, a weak sound, and asked, You do that every light? Yup, he said, eyes straight ahead, like it was no big thing. Safety first. People wildin' out here. You never know who's trying to run up. Clack. Locks up. The rhythm hit like a metronome, a ritual. Not for safety. For control. We crossed into quieter streets, the row homes stretching long and dark. My stomach dropped when I realized we weren't heading toward any place I knew. The sidewalks emptied, only the occasional stoop light glowed. My hand drifted to the handle. I gave it a subtle tug. Dead. Child lock on. He kept talking, but it wasn't conversation. It was narration, like he was explaining a script only he believed. See, lot of women don't understand how Philly really is. Men gotta protect. You're lucky you're with me. I keep everything tight. I nodded, heart hammering. My eyes slid to the dashboard. His GPS glowed faint green, the old kind with chunky graphics. One destination was pinned, preloaded. Not a bar. Not even an address I recognized. Just a single word, view. I swallowed hard. Where we headed? I asked, forcing casual. Spot I like, he said. Private. Nice view of the river. Quiet. His hand tapped the wheel in rhythm with the locks. Click. Clack. Click. Clack. Every light like clockwork. I shifted in my seat, pretending to adjust my jacket, and caught a glimpse in the back seat. A folded gray drop cloth. A roll of duct tape sliding just enough to reflect the passing streetlight. My throat closed. The next light lingered red. His hand hovered near the lock button like he was waiting for something, smiling faint. See, I keep it consistent. That's how you know you're safe with me. Safe. The word landed like a curse. Panic seized my chest. Before my brain could argue, my body moved. I yanked the handle again, slammed my shoulder into the door. Nothing. He chuckled low. Relax, he said. Ain't nobody getting you out of this car but me. The light flicked green. He reached for the lock release. That tiny half-second window opened, and adrenaline ripped through me. I shoved the handle again with everything I had. The lock snapped free, clack, and I tumbled out hard onto the curb. My palms skinned raw, knee cracking concrete. He shouted, cursed, tires squealing as he gunned it through the intersection. The car's taillights smeared red against the dark, shrinking fast. I sat there shaking under the traffic light, its colors cycling indifferent. Red, green, yellow. My breath came in ragged bursts. Every sound, the hum of an engine blocks away, a bottle rolling down asphalt, felt like a threat. I pressed myself against a cold row-home wall until my heartbeat slowed enough to stand. My phone buzzed. I fumbled it open, thumb trembling. A new rideshare request popped up on my screen. Not one I ordered. The pickup pin glowed at the corner where I'd just escaped. A block number was listed as the passenger. My stomach dropped. He wasn't gone. He was still trying to script the night. I hit block, shoved the phone in my pocket, and started walking. Every headlight that passed made me flinch. My scraped palms stung, but I didn't stop. I walked faster, until Broad Street noise filled my ears again, until I could see a line of people outside a late-night pizza joint. Regular noise, regular danger. I leaned against a brick wall, whispering it like a vow between gasps. I'm not going to be a headline. Then I turned my phone off and kept moving. I should have trusted my gut the second she suggested we head back to hers. But she had that tired smile, the kind that makes you think maybe she was as restless as me, and my gut had been wrong before. We cut off Central into a narrow side street, where the street lamps hummed and flickered like they were one bad night away from quitting. Her apartment building hunched low, stucco cracked, damp stains curling out from the foundation. Inside, it smelled like mildew and cigarette smoke that never left. The hallway carpet squelched faintly, as if the desert had found a way to stay wet. Her door opened on a cluttered living room. Thrift store couch, stacks of magazines half collapsed, clothes spilling from a chair. And then I saw them. 2 men already inside. They didn't stand. They didn't even greet me. Just sat. One at the hall, one angled near the door. They didn't need to move to block the exits. One cracked his knuckles slow, deliberate, as if warming up. The other kept his eyes on the grimy window, not blinking much, just watching the glow of the street lamp filter through bent blinds. Something cold sat heavy in my chest. She gave me that same tired smile and said, "I'll grab us drinks," slipping into the kitchen. I heard glass clinking, too many bottles at once, like a stack being shifted on purpose. Not pouring, not serving, just noise. Maybe for them, maybe for me. I sat because what else do you do? The cushions sagged, and the fabric felt damp against my palms. One of the men leaned forward. He didn't speak. He just tapped 2 fingers against the scarred wood of the table between us. Tap, tap, pause. A rhythm, not random. My gut translated it the way you don't want to comply. My throat went dry. I glanced toward the kitchen, but she didn't reappear. Just the sound of another bottle moved. Another clink. The man tapped again. Tap, tap. His chin tilted toward my pocket. Wallet. Phone. Everything in me screamed to argue, to buy time. But then the second guy, the one at the window, shifted just enough to glance at me. He didn't blink, didn't nod. Just looked. And it was enough to freeze me. I slid my phone and wallet across the table. The knuckle cracker picked them up, thumbing the phone like he'd already memorized the passcode. The other one tapped once, approval maybe, and went back to his vigil. Cool, I muttered, voice thin. Neither responded. Their silence felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced being walls, not men. A long minute stretched. The kitchen clinking stopped. I didn't hear the fridge open, didn't hear water run. Just nothing. Finally, the man at the table gave a small tilt of his chin. Barely a gesture, but clear. Go. I stood too fast, knees shaky. They didn't rise. Didn't need to. Their stillness said more than words. I moved past the door guy, careful not to brush his knee, careful to keep my eyes ahead. My hand twitched to reach for my phone in my pocket, and the empty space where it should have been sent a chill through me deeper than the desert night. Outside, the air hit hard, dry, sharp, alive with distant tires and faint mariachi bleeding from a car stereo somewhere. I walked fast, then faster, until it turned into a near run. My boots scraped against broken pavement, heart thumping loud enough I swore it might echo off adobe walls. A gas station glowed ahead like salvation, its neon sign sputtering, buzzing the word open, even though half the letters were dead. Inside, the clerk barely looked up as I asked to borrow a phone. My voice sounded foreign, cracked. He slid it across without question. I called a cab service, gave a random cross street near my place, and waited under the light that flickered just enough to make shadows strobe. My reflection in the glass door looked pale, lips split, eyes wide. I laughed once, bitter. Not my first weird night off Central, I muttered, though my hands wouldn't stop trembling. When I finally got home, the apartment felt too quiet. I locked every bolt, sat on the edge of my bed, stared at the wall until dawn painted it gray. I told myself I was lucky, just robbed, just scared. Could have been worse. I'd picked the Trattoria because it was small, near empty, ceiling fans slow and lazy, air smelling faintly of red sauce and old wood. I thought maybe it'd be cozy safe. He arrived late, all apologies in that southern drawl that turns sentences into syrup. Tall, neatly pressed, hair slick like he still used pomade. He smiled as he slid into the booth across from me, and the first word out of his mouth wasn't my name. Caroline. I froze a second. Thought maybe I misheard. Maybe he was greeting a ghost over my shoulder. But his eyes were fixed on me. Blue-gray, steady, sure. Sorry? I said, smiling awkward to cover. You look just like her, he murmured, soft enough the ceiling fan nearly swallowed it. The way you tuck your hair. Caroline always did that. I laughed a little weak. My name's not Caroline. The waiter approached then, pad in hand. Evening, y'all. Drinks for you too. Yes, he said quickly. Caroline'll have the house red. Always loved a glass with her pasta. The waiter didn't blink, just scribbled. He didn't ask me. Didn't look at me. Wrote Caroline. And here's the part that sank a nail into my ribs. He didn't correct him. I swallowed. It's actually I'll take water, I said, my voice too high. The waiter's eyes flickered, but the man across from me only smiled wider. You sound different, he said, tilting his head. But it's there. That same heartbeat. I can see it, right there. His gaze landed at my throat, where my pulse thudded in the hollow. Just like hers. The ceiling fan above ticked with each slow rotation. Sweat slid down my back, even though the place wasn't warm enough for it. He asked what I wanted to eat. I fumbled over the menu, pointed to a pasta dish without thinking. His lips curved in something too tender to be a smile. Red sauce, he murmured. Knew you'd pick that. Caroline never could resist red sauce. My stomach nodded. My pendant, a tiny silver circle my aunt gave me, slid against my collarbone when I shifted. His eyes went straight to it. You still wear it, he said. Just like that night. Tucked under sometimes, out when you're nervous. I nearly pulled it off right there, but my hands stayed glued to my lap. The waiter returned with the water and a glass of red. The man nodded at the red. She'll drink it, he said low with a finality that made my chest tighten. The waiter set both down and left. I took the water in both hands and drank, throat dry as chalk. He leaned in. Do you know how much I've missed you, Caroline? Every word wrapped in tenderness, like he wasn't speaking to me at all, but to someone only he could see. His eyes softened, moist at the corners. It was grief. Real grief. I pushed the glass away. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, I said, forcing the words steady. He only tilted his head, like a man humoring a child. You can say that, but your body remembers. I see it in the way you reach for your water first, the way you lean left when you sit. Same habits. People don't change that easy. I wanted to leave, but my body sat frozen. The trattoria had grown even emptier, ceiling fans groaning, shadows stretching across the scuffed tile floor. Somewhere down the block, a cicada started its shrill buzz. He lifted his hand then, and I noticed it, a small, crescent scar just beneath his thumb. Pale and raised, like something healed years ago. A flash sparked in my brain. I'd seen that scar. Not in person. In a news photo, maybe. I didn't know where, not yet, but recognition jolted me like static. Why'd you run? He whispered suddenly. His voice cracked on it. Why'd you go that night? I would have forgiven you. My stomach lurched. I pushed my chair back. Excuse me, I said, voice shaking. I need the restroom. His hand shot out, not touching, just hovering over the table, palm open, plea in his eyes. Don't leave me again. I stood anyway. The chair legs screeched against the tile. The ceiling fan ticked slower, like the whole room had gone off tempo. I went to the counter, told the waiter I wanted the bill. My voice was sharper than I meant, maybe desperate. He slid it over, leather folder closed. My fingers shook as I pulled cash. Too much, didn't care. When I opened the folder to slip the bills inside, a slip of paper waited. Not the check, just a handwritten note on lined paper. Thank you, Caroline, for tonight. The penmanship neat, careful, slanted. Familiar in a way that tightened my throat. I shoved the cash in, closed it, walked fast to the door. My skin itched, like his gaze burned holes down my back. Outside, the Charleston night hit me, sticky and close. The smell of pluff mud drifted faint, sweet rot under the streetlights. I didn't think. I ran to the first bus I saw, climbed on without checking where it was headed. I dropped into a seat by the window, lungs heaving. The city blurred past, palms, wrought iron balconies, neon beer signs buzzing faint. I reached up and yanked the necklace off my neck, shoved it deep in my bag. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. An older woman across the aisle gave me a long look. She muttered, "Bless your heart," in that Charleston way that meant both pity and fear. I stared out the window, and repeated it under my breath. Bless his heart. That man ain't right. At home later, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan above my bed ticked like the trattorias. I pulled out my laptop, searched the news archives. I didn't know what I was looking for until I saw it. A missing person flyer, 3 years old. A young woman smiling, hair tucked the same way I did when nervous. Name Caroline. And there, in the corner of the photo, a man's hand draped over her shoulder. Scar under the thumb, crescent pale. The handwriting on the flyer, the plea for information, the number to call, matched the note I'd just been handed in that leather folder. Same slope. Same curl. My chest locked tight. The trattoria receipt sat on my nightstand, the note still inside. Thank you, Caroline, for tonight. I wiped my palms on my jeans at the curb and told myself this was normal first date jitter. Haley and I had traded easy messages, barbecue versus tacos, lake or pool, so when she said, swing by my place first, I pictured a 5-minute pickup, maybe a lift to a loud spot with wobbly tables and frosty margs. A harmless night. A little flirty. Nothing to write a headline about. Her porch light popped on as I parked. Big driveways, crepe myrtles posing in the dim, flags that hadn't come down since the last holiday, very Dallas. Somewhere close, something was simmering. The air smelled like stew and lemon pledge. I straightened my shirt, knocked, and rehearsed the harmless version of me. Hi, I floss. I split checks. I'm not a jackass. See? Polite. The door opened. Evenin', Haley said, sugar bright. Come on in. The room behind her looked like a living room ad for Family Values, and also a courtroom. Mama on a floral sofa. A little sister on the rug, braiding too tight. Aunt in scrubs. Cousin in a ball cap with a legal pad. Grandma with her mouth set like she'd lost faith in everyone since 1973. A broad-shouldered brother stationed by the front door like the world's friendliest bouncer. And at the far end, sunk into a leather armchair that knew the exact weight of paternal judgment. Dad. I heard my mouth say it before my brain caught up. Evenin', sir. Ma'am. Dallas puts sir and ma'am on your tongue like a mint. Have yourself a seat, Mama said, patting an open spot on the sofa cushion like it had my name embroidered on it. I sat. The air felt organized. The coffee table was a slab of lacquered wood, and dead center, a Bible lay open and faced outward, Ephesians. I didn't have to lean to read it. Wives submit, husbands the head. Cute. Ceiling fan turned slow. ASC hummed righteous. Stu ghosted the room like a bribe. Dad cleared his throat. It sounded like a gavel. So, he said pleasantly, you the gentleman from the application? I blinked. The app. Smile. Make it a joke. Application, he repeated, and somehow in his mouth the word meant paper and references and your daddy's handshake. Haley perched on an ottoman like a court-appointed public defender. Daddy, she sing-songed, be nice. Oh, I am being nice, he said, eyes never leaving mine. We believe in Christian hospitality. He glanced at the open Bible and then back at me. Name? I gave it, middle included, because it felt compulsory. Age? I told him. Occupation? I explained my work. Aunt Scrubs adjusted her badge and said, benefits? Dental? Vision? Yes, ma'am. Salary? Dad asked, no shame at all. I gave a polite range, the first date kind. Cousin Ballcap's pen scratched like a cricket. Brother door shifted just enough that the wood creaked. He was quiet big, cordy neck, sleeves hugging biceps, belt buckle big enough to skip a stone with. He didn't eyeball me. He eyeballed the air around me, like he could read temptations floating there. Any arrests? Dad asked as if it were height and weight. No, sir. Tickets? Warrants? Collections? Parking tickets in college, I said. Paid. Mostly. I smiled the way people smile when they throw college at a problem like a towel. The little sister leaned toward Mama and whispered, too loud, does he scare easy? Mama didn't answer. Walking past the front window to fetch tea, she dropped her gaze a fraction, not moving her head, and clocked my plate number in one smooth practiced sweep. She came back with a sweating glass and set it on a coaster printed with, as for me and my house. The tea immediately baptized the verse in sugar water. Church? Grandma asked. Raised Baptist, I said. Don't attend regular. Grandma made a noise like I'd tracked mud across carpet. Drink? Ann asked. Occasionally. Porn? Grandma fired, flat as a nurse taking vitals. Mama. Haley yelped. What? Grandma said, palms up to heaven. We askin questions. The room didn't laugh. I felt my ears cook. No, ma'am. I lied politely because sometimes when I'm lonely and the internet is free, is not an acceptable testimony under an open Bible. Politics? Cousin Ballcap said. Not on a first date, I said, then added, sir, because I heard brother's shoulder joints reset. We don't do secrets, Dad said, still smiling. This ain't Washington. He glanced at Haley. You cook. She's learnin', Mama answered for her, as if the lady on trial had no standing to speak. Aunt tapped her pen. Children? How many? Timeline? Daycare or Mama stays home? Sweat slid from my temple to my ear. Eventually? We'd decide together? Do you own firearms? Brother asked, voice quiet but freighted. No, sir. The room sighed, disappointed. Grandma mm'd, like a hymn in a minor key. Dallas, or you plannin' on dragging our girl to some Blue City mess? Dad asked, honey-edged with razor. My job's here, I said. Dallas. He nodded once. The chair sighed with him. I took a sip of tea to buy a second. It was so sweet my molars winced. Somewhere down the hall a lamp buzzed. The stew burped, the scent leaned closer. Maybe we, Haley said, standing, hand light on my shoulder like a sparrow landing. Daddy, we'll just show him the kitchen. She'll go where I say, Dad said without looking at her, still smiling at me. But go on. We like transparency. Take a little tour. He gestured down the hall with the concierge's hand. We passed the dining room set like a catalog, runner ironed, candles untouched, crystal bowl of fruit too pretty to be edible. The hallway walls had family photos in heavy frames. Haley in a smock dress, Haley at Easter, Haley with a diploma. And then a white painted corkboard dressed in lace and intention. Polaroids of men in collared shirts, each pinned with a pushpin. A few photos had holes dead center in the faces. 2 had been torn straight down the middle, clean, the halves re-pinned so the break showed. I stopped. Haley didn't. What's that? I asked. She turned, saw what I saw, and her smile shorted. Mama calls it the suitor's board. A tiny laugh escaped and died. They're being funny. Funny, I repeated. Someone had ripped those perfectly. You okay? Slipped out before I could net it. She nodded too fast. From the kitchen came the clink of spoon on pot, performative domesticity. The smell of stew reached out like a hand. I should go, I said quietly. Don't, she whispered back. It's worse if you leave without Daddy saying so. For the first time, I believed she didn't fully own this circus. Maybe she liked the tent. Maybe she'd escaped a few times and learned the cost. We returned to the living room. No one pretended to have been doing anything but waiting to calibrate me. Mama smoothed her skirt. Little sister's braid was now tight enough to shine. Everything all right? Dad asked. Yes, sir, I said, because my Nana raised me to use manners even when the room felt haunted. My throat clicked. Sir, with respect, I'm fixin' to head out. No one moved. The A-C grew louder, like it was trying to write over my sentence. Head out, Dad said mildly. That's so? Yes, sir. He cocked his head as if catching a distant train. My pulse thumped loud enough that the little sister's eyes jumped to my throat like she could see it. Do you care about my daughter? He asked, voice as sweet as a trap. I don't know her yet, I said, the sanest truth I'd spoken all night. He nodded. Something micro in his face softened, 1 pixel. He glanced at the open Bible like he was consulting notes, then lifted his chin a hair. It was a movement you could miss unless an entire room was braced for it. The room exhaled. Brother eased half a step right. The door was no longer part of his body. Aunt capped her pen. Cousin slid the legal pad under a cushion like a dog burying contraband. Grandma made a satisfied mm. Little sister sighed. He does scare easy. I didn't correct her. I stood. Thank y'all for the tea, I said, voice steady because the universe had finally taken its boot off my chest. You forgettin' your manners, Grandma said, tossing one last dart. Ain't you gonna thank your elders for their time? I appreciate your time, I said to the room. To Dad, sir. His smile stayed evangelical. We'll be in touch. No need, I said, and added another sir, because I am housebroken. Brother opened the door. Night air smelled like cut grass, hot rubber, a little freedom. I stepped onto the porch boards. They creaked. A vine threw sweet stink at my face. I descended and did not look back. I walked fast, then faster, then found the pace between sprint and dignity. Texas speed walk, emergency but polite. 3 blocks later my lungs finally took a full breath, and it grazed my tongue electric like I'd licked a 9-volt. I kept going. I didn't turn to see if Haley watched from the glass like a ghost, or if brother was a shadow with a jawline. I walked until my car felt like a friend. I slid in, locked it, stared at my reflection in the windshield's black. One laugh escaped, high brittle, not the good kind. Some nights the only thing between you and a Dateline voiceover is your legs. Phone lit. The app floated Haley's filtered smile. It hadn't changed. Bright, tidy, unmessy, as if doubt had been ironed out in post. My thumb hovered over unmatch. I closed the app instead. The dark pressed my skull and said, drive. At the first long light near a strip mall, my phone rang. No caller ID. I should have let it die. But manners, curiosity, nerves, the unholy trinity. I thumbed green. Hello. Silence. Then the voice, calm, measured, the exact timbre of 1,000 Texas dads at 1,000 church picnics. Son, he said. This is your uncle. Cold slid my spine. I think you. Why'd you leave? He said, vowels softened to butter, edges sharp as a razor. For you had permission. I glanced at the screen and went colder. The call had spoofed. The display showed my own number. Wrong number, I said and hung up. My hand shook, stupid and obvious, like I'd been caught with something NSFW on a church computer. Phone rang again immediately. Same display. I let it yowl. No voicemail dinged. I powered the phone down. Turned the radio up, then off. Mattress commercials suddenly felt obscene. I drove. The elevator groaned, like it resented carrying me. It smelled faintly of rust and salt, like a ship too old to sail. I wiped my palms on my jeans as the doors creaked open and stepped out into his hallway. The soft hum of a dehumidifier filled the silence, a low, steady drone that made my stomach feel heavier. His door was already cracked open before I could knock. That should have been my first warning. He smiled, practiced and clean, the kind of smile you learn in mirrors, but his eyes never warmed. Come on in, he said. Inside, the place looked staged. Sterile perfection. Not just tidy, unnervingly deliberate. No laundry tossed on chairs, no dishes in the sink, not even a rogue magazine left open. The couch cushions looked plumped by measuring tape, and the coffee table gleamed like it had been waxed 15 minutes before I arrived. There was no smell of food, no candles burned down, just lemon cleaner and something faintly metallic. Nice place, I said, my voice bouncing too sharp in the silence. Thanks, he answered, already taking my damp coat and hanging it with precision on a peg. His movements weren't casual. They were rehearsed. I tried to relax, settling into the couch. That's when I noticed it. At first, I thought it was just framed art, a collage maybe. But when I leaned forward, my breath hitched. An entire wall was covered with photographs. Dozens upon dozens of selfies. All women. Some were bright and smiling, lit by bar neon. Others had the same lamp glow as the room I was sitting in. Some smiles looked natural, others stretched too wide, eyes too sharp. The labels beneath each picture made my skin crawl. A date, a drink order, and a single word. Compliant. Chatty. Jumpier. My throat went dry. Pretty neat, huh? His voice came from closer than I expected. I jumped, turned, and he chuckled. I like remembering details. People forget. I don't. He lifted his phone from the table. Let's get yours. I forced a laugh. That's okay. He tilted his head, frown barely there, as if I'd gotten the answer wrong on a test. Chin up a little. Shoulders back. His hand hovered near my arm, not touching, but close enough I could feel the air shift. I obeyed without meaning to. My body reacted before my brain could fight. Click. The sound of the shutter cracked the silence like a whip. He looked at the screen, then at me, and the smile that spread across his face wasn't playful. It was confirmation. I'm just going to use the bathroom, I blurted. My voice was too quick, too bright. He gestured down the hall. Second door. The moment the lock clicked, I let out a shaky breath. The mirror showed my own pale, nervous face, hair damp from the rain, eyes wide and darting. I pulled my phone from my pocket, no bars. No service at all. I tried anyway. Error. The window above the toilet caught my eye. It was painted shut, thick white strokes sealing it like someone had wanted to make sure it never opened again. I picked at it with a nail. The paint flaked, but the frame didn't budge. My chest tightened. I was trapped. When I opened the door, he was already there, standing in the hallway. Smiling. Waiting. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, I lied. My voice wobbled. Lovely place. His eyes searched my face like he was deciding which word to label me with. Compliant? Jumpier? Thanks for tonight, I said quickly. But I should probably head out. He didn't move at first. Just smiled. Then slowly he stepped aside. I forced myself not to sprint. I slipped my shoes on wrong-footed, yanked my coat from the peg, and murmured something like gratitude. The elevator moaned as it carried me down, each second stretching too long. When the doors opened, I bolted into the rain. The night stabbed at me, cold drops needling through my coat, water dripping into my collar. I walked fast, then faster, until it became a near-run downhill. My hands shook as I dug my phone out, screen smeared with rain. It buzzed. A new message. My stomach plummeted. A photo. Me. Standing stiff, chin lifted, shoulders corrected, eyes wide. Captured from moments earlier in his living room. Caption for the wall. I almost dropped the phone. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. My thumb moved on its own. I deleted the app, deleted his contact, anything that tied me to him. But it didn't undo the photo. I kept walking, the rain soaking through, my breath jagged, chest burning. Every sound made me flinch, the hiss of car tires, the groan of a bus, the slam of a door behind me. I walked until the city lights blurred through the rain, until my legs ached, until I could pretend I wasn't still hearing the soft hum of his dehumidifier in my ears. She leaned across the cafe table, perfume sweet and dizzying, and said, "Let's take a walk, Cher. The park's real pretty by moonlight." Magazine Street still throbbed behind us with brass spilling from a bar, neon humming above half-drunk tourists. But she tugged my hand, heels clicking as she led me away from the safety of noise. The further we went, the thinner the sound got. Music muffled, chatter smothered, until all that was left was the cicada chorus and the occasional groan of an old street lamp buzzing awake. She slipped off her heels halfway down the block, dangling them from one hand. Barefoot now, she walked silent as a ghost. Her perfume lingered behind her like a breadcrumb trail, jasmine cut with something darker. The park opened wide and shadowy, oaks draped in moss like curtains. I barely had time to register the empty benches before he appeared. A hooded figure stepped out from behind a tree, smooth, like he'd been waiting for the cue. I didn't even get a word out before he slammed me back into the bark. The crack of my shoulder rattled through my teeth. My phone and wallet were gone in seconds, stripped from my pockets with practiced hands. What froze me wasn't his grip, though, it was the sound. He hummed while he worked, low and tuneless. And I realized, throat tight, that it was the same little melody she'd whistled over dinner. The same rise and fall. The same rhythm. She didn't scream, didn't plead. She just stood there, barefoot in the grass, watching like she'd seen this play 100 times. Her head tilted, bored, perfume drifting. When he was done, he gave her a glance, and she gave the tiniest nod. Then they walked off together. I stayed pinned to the tree for a long second before gravity let me slide down to the roots. My jaw throbbed where it had clipped the bark. Blood ran copper at the corner of my mouth. Somewhere behind me, brass floated faint from a second-line parade, blurred with distance, joyous and cruel. I stumbled out of the shadows, toward the glow of streetlights. Each step felt like wading through wet cement. The lamps buzzed, cicadas shrieked, and the city carried on like nothing had happened. I made it to a bus bench, sat heavy, head in my hands. The taste of blood mixed with sweat. Should have stayed on magazine, Cher, I muttered, voice raw. Weeks later, with a replacement phone in hand, I thought I was done with it. Thought it was just a bad date turned worse. Then late one night, as I scrolled in bed, a notification blinked across my screen. Airdrop request. The preview image stopped my breath. A live photo. The oak tree in that park. Same angle, same moss curtain, captured before I ever got there. I hit decline so fast my thumb shook, but the jasmine-sweet smell of her perfume rose up in memory, and I knew declining didn't mean it was over. By the time I pushed into the cafe that night, my boots were caked with salt and slush, my jacket dusted white like I'd been rolled in flour. I stamped the cold off, the little brass bell over the door chiming with that fragile optimism cafes love to project. Warm air hit me, light too, buttery and low, reflecting off fogged glass windows streaked with condensation. Inside smelled of burnt espresso, cinnamon, and the faint iron tang of radiator heat. Tables were half full, the murmur of conversations blending with the hiss of steaming milk. It was the kind of place you trust on instinct. The kind of place that looks like it couldn't possibly hurt you. She was already waiting at a two-top by the window, waving with a mittened hand as if we were old friends. Her scarf was coiled neatly, cheeks pinked from the cold. She looked, well, charming, polished in a casual way, like she'd put effort into seeming effortless. Minnesota nice. That smile people here practice until it feels like currency. "Hey there," she said, standing to greet me, eyes bright, voice wrapped in warmth. I liked her immediately, or maybe I wanted to. My last few dates had been disasters. One no-show, one endless monologue about cryptocurrency, one who left halfway through with a fake emergency text. This felt better already. We settled in. She laughed easily, tossed her hair, tilted her head at the right moments. I noticed how she kept her phone on the table, always within reach, thumb flicking across the screen between sips. A nervous tick, I thought. God knows I do the same. But every so often, I caught her eyes flicking past me toward the door. Quick glances. Not long enough to feel obvious, just enough to register if you were watching closely. Like she was checking the camera angles in her head. We talked weather, jobs, how people in Minneapolis complain about winter like it's a fresh betrayal every year. She laughed, leaned in, her perfume faint and floral. When it came time to pay, I insisted. She gave the token protest. "Oh no, let me," then smiled in relief when I waved it off. I stood, pulled my wallet, and walked to the counter. It couldn't have been more than 3 minutes. The barista smiled, rang me up, handed back my card with a receipt I crumpled into my pocket. I turned, ready to joke about how overpriced muffins had become. Her chair sat empty. Empty in a way that prickled every hair on my neck. Her coat was gone. My laptop bag gone too. The chair tucked in neat, like a student excusing themselves from class. Sorry," I said to the waiter clearing plates nearby. "Did you see where she went?" He didn't even look up from stacking mugs. "Walked out calm as sunrise," he said, flat Midwestern cadence, like it wasn't unusual. Like he'd seen it before. I froze there, receipt balled in my hand. The cafe chatter blurred into static. Outside, the snow reflected the sodium streetlights in dull halos. A set of faint boot tracks curved toward the curb, already softening in the slush. A black sedan idled there, hazard lights blinking, rideshare sticker glowing faint on the windshield. As it pulled away, I swore I saw her silhouette leaning back in the seat, phone lit up, face already turned away from mine. I stood in the doorway far too long, heart thudding like I'd been caught cheating at something I didn't even understand the rules of. Back inside, the empty space where my bag had been pulled at me like a hole. 3 years of work lived there, manuscripts, drafts, research notes, personal photos, even my tax files. Gone with a zipper whisper I hadn't even heard. I lowered myself into the chair, numb. Her tea mug still sat there, a neat ring of condensation marking its place. Her smile still hung in the air like perfume, faint but undeniable. On impulse, I opened the chat app. Her profile still glowed green, messages intact. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but before I could type, the icon blinked gray. Then vanished. Profile deleted. Like she'd been a mirage, like she'd never existed at all. I stumbled outside, cold hitting harder this time, the wind pushing against me as though to punish. Breath fogged fast, my coat felt paper thin. I shoved my hands deep into pockets and muttered to no one. Well, that's on me then. The words felt hollow, useless. Snow crunched underfoot. Every block between the cafe and my apartment felt longer than it should. I kept glancing down, scanning the ground compulsively as if my bag might have fallen there, abandoned like a lost mitten. Even when logic screamed no, some part of me hoped. At home, silence pressed. The absence of that laptop bag was louder than any sound. I made tea, let it go cold. I sat on the couch with my coat still on, staring at the door like maybe she'd walked back in with an apology rehearsed. The days after blurred. I filed reports, useless. Police shrugged, happens. Friends laughed bitterly. Guess you got catfished in real life. My boss was less forgiving. Deadlines loomed, vanished with my files. And then came the email. Subject line blank. Sender address gibberish. Against every rational bone in my body, I opened it. A PDF loaded. My manuscript. My work, every page, every line. But stamped across each was a watermark. Property of followed by the nickname she'd used on the app. I scrolled. Hundreds of pages, each one tagged. Her claim, loud and permanent. At the bottom, a single sentence in plain text. Want it back? No dollar amount. No instructions. Just the question. Signed with her chat emoji, the little heart I'd thought was flirty. I sat frozen, the snow outside blurring the window into static. My own words stared back at me, overlaid with her name like graffiti. I closed the laptop, reopened it, hoping it was some nightmare. The watermark stayed. That night, I dreamed of her laugh, the way it had bubbled up as she tilted her head, eyes shining. I dreamed of her hand sliding across the table, palm almost brushing mine. I dreamed of the zipper whisper, soft and final, and woke drenched in sweat. For weeks after, I couldn't sit in a cafe without paranoia coiling tight. My foot hooked through my bag strap every time. My eyes darted to every door, every stranger's phone. Whenever someone laughed too loud, my pulse spiked. Dinner was dull, not dangerous. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't loud. Just beige. Stories told without color, smile lines that didn't quite crease deep enough. I kept telling myself it was a harmless evening, the kind you chalk up as a wasted outfit. Nothing more. We'd picked one of those trendy spots with a patio strung in fairy bulbs, the kind that makes everything look Instagrammable even if the food is mediocre. The Pacific was out of sight but close enough that the air carried salt with every inhale. My hair caught the damp, my dress clung at the hem. When I stood to leave, he leaned in with a quick, automatic smile. "Let me help," he said, already sliding my chair back like it was a reflex. He bent low, one hand on the chair's wood, the other brushing near the strap of my purse. Just a flicker of contact, barely there. Polite, I told myself. Courteous. I smiled because that's what you do when someone insists on manners. I drove home with the windows cracked, letting the ocean breeze slip in, headlights cutting across stucco walls and palm shadows. My building loomed quiet, its stucco yellowed by salt air. Inside, my apartment was small but mine, coconut candles still burning on the counter, casting the faintest sweetness into the air. I washed my face, smoothed moisturizer across cheeks, let the evening fall away. And then my phone buzzed. Not a message. A warning. AirTag found moving with you. The words made my hands tremble. For a second, I stared blankly, trying to convince myself it was a glitch, an error. But the screen didn't change. The alert stayed, pulsing steady as my heartbeat. I dumped my purse on the bed, heart thundering, coins and lip balm and pens scattering. My keys clinked to the floor. And there it was, white, plain, unassuming. A disc no bigger than a coin. I didn't want to touch it, but I did, pinching it like evidence. The map on my phone bloomed to life, a dotted trail of everywhere I'd been that night. From the restaurant, the drive along the coast, each turn, each stoplight, up the stairs to my building, into my apartment. Every step, tracked. My mouth went dry. I snapped it into a freezer bag, pressed the seal with shaking fingers, and shoved it into the back of my freezer like maybe the cold could kill it. The hum of the machine became my white noise for the night, my only anchor. I barely slept. At dawn, I yanked on a hoodie, grabbed the bag, and drove. Freeway signs blurred. I didn't care where I went, just that I kept going. At a gas station miles out, I dropped the freezer bag disc into a trash bin, heart slamming, and turned my back before it hit the bottom. By the time I got home, his profile was gone. Deleted. As if he'd never existed. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. After that night, my brain rewired itself. I couldn't move through the city the same way. I mapped new walking routes, circling blocks to see if anyone shadowed me. I tore through my bags weekly, pulling at seams, nails catching on stitching, looking for hidden seams. I bought pepper spray, looped it to my keys. Sleep turned shallow. Every creak of the building made me jolt upright, heart pounding. I left lamps on, let TV static mumble in the background, so the silence wouldn't swallow me whole. I told friends bits of it, watered down. Bad date. I'd say, laughing too brightly. Creepy guy. They nodded, shrugged. This is the tax women pay for dating, right? A brush with danger filed under paranoia. But the city didn't feel sunny anymore. The Pacific's lullaby, once my favorite sound on late-night walks, now felt like surveillance. Every wave seemed to hush footsteps I couldn't quite hear. 3 months passed before the second strike. It was 3 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, vibration rattling the wood. I rolled over, groggy. And there it was again. Item found moving with you. I sat up so fast the blood rushed my ears. The room was black, blinds drawn, only the faint glow of the screen painting my walls. No, I whispered, voice shaking. No, no, no. I tore through my purse. Empty. Closet shelves. Nothing. Drawers yanked open, socks spilling. Nothing. I crawled on hands and knees, scrabbling under the bed, palms scraping wood. Nothing. But the map pulsed. The red trail crawled up to my building, into my apartment. My lungs locked. I sat frozen on the floor, staring at the glow, until finally, mercifully, the alert cleared. The map blinked away. When morning came, I told myself it was a glitch. A phantom ping, maybe. A leftover signal from that first disk. That's what I clung to, until I found the app. Scrolling late one night, I noticed a new follower on my running tracker. I almost swiped past, but something caught my eye. A username, subtle, close to his old one. My stomach nodded. He'd followed me there. Every run I'd logged, routes along the beach, times stamped to the minute, miles mapped, he had them all. My patterns, my habits, the places I slowed down. I deleted the account, fingers trembling. Wiped the app from my phone, then checked 3 times to be sure it was gone. The weeks after stretched long and tense. I told friends, no more beach walks after dark. They nodded, sympathetic, never asking why. I didn't tell them about the AirTag, or the 3 a.m. alert, or the way I'd caught my own reflection in the window and thought, someone else could be watching this too. I tried to rebuild routines. Grocery store runs at crowded hours. Jogging at the gym, not the shore. I told myself it was over. He was gone forever. Or so I hoped. My sister set me up on the date. She swore he was sweet, said she met him once through work, that he seemed safe enough. Just give him a chance, she'd pressed. Worst case, you get a free dinner out of it. I agreed, half because I trusted her, half because I didn't want to admit how thin my own dating streak had worn. He picked a place just off Kingston Pike, one of those sit-down chains with dim booths, fried catfish on the menu, and walls covered in antique license plates. The kind of joint where you think nothing bad can happen because the tea is bottomless and the music is all banjos. At first glance, he looked ordinary enough. Button-down shirt, too much cologne, haircut fresh but a little too sharp for a weeknight. He stood to greet me, smile wide, voice syrupy. Good to finally meet you, sister's name, he said. I froze. My own name hung in my throat like a swallowed pebble. Actually, he blinked, chuckled. Sorry. Y'all just look so much alike. It wasn't the kind of mistake that ends a date. Except he kept doing it. Over and over, like my name was a suit that didn't fit him right. Every time, his lips shaped my sister's name like it was muscle memory. At first, I thought nerves. Then I caught the way his eyes lit up. Not at me, but at the thought of her. He asked about my childhood, but not in that generic first date way. Specific things. Did we still go to Dollywood every Christmas? Did our granny still keep that quilt on her couch? He quoted one of my sister's old Instagram captions word for word, some throwaway line about cicadas louder than the sermon. I stared at him across the table, catfish cooling on my plate, while he grinned like we were sharing some private family joke. You really know a lot about us, I said carefully. He didn't blink. I followed your sister for a while, he admitted, voice low, intimate, like a confession meant to draw us closer. Different accounts. She kept blocking me, so I had to get creative. But when I saw she had a sister, I figured maybe this was the way to get in. My stomach twisted. You're saying the only reason you asked me out was? To meet her, he said simply, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. His eyes shone, pupils wide. You're a bridge. Don't take it personal. The East Tennessee charm in his voice didn't soften the steel underneath. When the check came, he pulled a tiny trinket from his pocket, a keychain shaped like a ladybug. He set it on the table between us. I thought your sis would like this, he said. Figure you can give it to her. I didn't touch it. Outside, the night air smelled of honeysuckle and hot asphalt. The parking lot stretched wide and half empty, sodium lamps buzzing overhead. He walked beside me, crowding just enough that his arm brushed mine, steering me without touching. His smile didn't waver. At my car, he leaned casually against the door like it belonged to him. Let's take a selfie, he said, phone already raised. So I can show your sister we vibed. No, I snapped. My voice cracked sharp. This isn't funny. He lowered the phone but didn't move. She'll come around, he said, almost sing-song. She always does. I yanked the door open, slid inside, hands shaking. He stepped back just enough to let me slam it shut. My key fumbled in the ignition, breath shallow. Through the glass, he smiled, entitled, patient, like a man who thought time was on his side. I locked the doors, engine roaring to life. My knuckles went white on the wheel as I muttered under my breath. Boy, you best keep driving, . I pulled out fast, tires crunching gravel. The rearview mirror caught his figure standing still in the lot, arms loose at his sides, watching me go. The drive home felt endless. Knoxville strip malls blurred past, darkened nail salons, shuttered pawn shops, gas stations lit harsh in the night. Every pair of headlights in my rearview set my pulse racing. I half expected his car to fall in line behind me, steady as a shadow. When I finally reached my apartment, I parked 2 streets over, just in case. Car off, lights out, I sat in the silence with my breath loud in my ears, trying not to throw the F up. I matched with Barry on a Thursday night, after a long day of emails, meetings, and too much cold coffee. His profile said he was 34, worked in logistics, and liked grilling, road trips, and good bourbon. He had a strong jaw, neatly trimmed beard, and a dimple on one side that showed when he smiled. I won't lie, he was attractive. Confident, but not cocky. We started chatting that night. He was quick with responses, playful but respectful. We talked about music, he liked older country, I leaned indie folk, food, he said he smoked his own ribs, and travel, he'd been to 22 states, mostly by car. There was something easy about it, familiar. By Friday afternoon, he asked if I wanted to meet. I hesitated. I usually took longer, days, sometimes weeks before agreeing to anything in person. But he seemed solid, grounded. He offered to meet in public, said he'd drive to me, and even suggested a coffee shop I liked before I brought it up. We met at 2 p.m. on Saturday. He showed up in a black pickup, clean but clearly used. He wore jeans, a flannel, and a faded ball cap. He smiled when he saw me and gave a small wave before coming around to open the door for me. "Nice to meet you, finally," he said. His voice was lower than I expected. Slow, deliberate. We sat outside, ordered drinks, talked for about an hour. He asked a lot of questions about my job, my family, what I did for fun. Nothing felt invasive. Just curious. But there were a few things that stood out. First, he had a habit of redirecting the conversation when I asked about his past. He'd answer vaguely, then pivot. "You said you worked in logistics. What kind exactly?" "Oh, inventory systems. Anyway, what about you? How'd you get into nonprofit work?" Second, he mentioned guns. A lot. Not aggressively. Not in a way that made it sound like a threat, but casually, like he was talking about gardening or baseball. "I've got a few collectibles at home. Mostly locked up. Part of a hobby. I used to go shooting with my dad. Good way to clear your head." Finally, his age didn't quite match his face. He looked older than 34. Not dramatically, but the lines around his eyes, the way he talked about certain life events, it didn't add up. I asked once jokingly, "You sure you're not 40? He laughed. "I've got an old soul." Still, I felt safe enough. We were in public. He was polite. The conversation was flowing. Then he asked if I wanted to see his place. "I've got some smoked brisket in the fridge I could reheat," he said. "And I've got this bourbon I think you'd like." I paused. He noticed. "No pressure," he added. "Just figured we're getting along." Part of me wanted to say no. But a bigger part, curious, flattered, said yes. His house was about 20 minutes away, tucked off a rural road just outside city limits. As we drove, he pointed out landmarks, told me stories about growing up nearby. When we pulled into the driveway, I noticed the lack of neighbors. Trees on both sides. No streetlights. Just the sound of gravel under the tires and cicadas buzzing in the dusk. The house was neat. Small but well kept. He unlocked the door and gestured for me to enter first. Inside, it smelled like cedar and something faintly metallic. He offered me a drink, water or bourbon. I chose water. While he poured it, I glanced around. The living room was clean but sparse. A leather recliner, a wooden coffee table, a large TV mounted on the wall. No photos. No personal touches. Just a single bookshelf with military history titles and a few hunting magazines. "You want to see the collection?" he asked, handing me the glass. I blinked. "Collection?" "The guns," he said. "Figured you'd be curious." I hadn't said I was. Not once. But I followed him anyway. He led me down a short hallway to a locked door. Pulled a key from his pocket and opened it. The room was a shrine. Rifles mounted on the wall. Pistols in glass cases. A workbench with cleaning tools. Ammo boxes stacked neatly in the corner. Posters of vintage gun ads. Everything clean, polished, and meticulously arranged. "This," he said, "is where I spend most of my free time." I nodded slowly. "Impressive," I said, though it wasn't what I meant. He picked up a revolver and held it out toward me. "Ever shot one of these?" I took a step back. "No." He laughed. "It's not loaded. Relax." I didn't. He put it down and turned to me, suddenly serious. I don't invite just anyone here." I swallowed. "Okay. I mean it," he continued. Most people don't get it. They think it's dangerous. But it's not. It's about control, precision, history. I nodded. You're quiet, he added. Just processing, I said. It's a lot. He tilted his head. You scared? I paused. No, I lied. He smiled. Good. We returned to the living room. I said I should head out soon. It was getting late. He didn't argue. But as I stood, he said, Hey, before you go, can I ask you something? Sure. Why'd you swipe right? I blinked. What? What was it? The beard? The truck? The idea of something a little rougher around the edges? I forced a smile. You seemed interesting. He nodded slowly. I lied about my age. I stiffened. I'm not 34, he said. I'm 41. I said nothing. He grinned. Still want to leave? I grabbed my bag. He didn't stop me, but he watched as I walked to the door. Didn't move. Didn't say goodbye. That night, I blocked his number. Deleted the app. Scrubbed my social media of anything he might have seen. I never heard from him again. It started with a snake emoji. That's what he sent after I commented on his profile bio. Snake dad. Terrarium engineer. Cold-blooded friends only. I thought it was a joke. Or at least ironic. His pictures didn't scream exotic pet guy. He looked more like a barista or a plant shop owner. Soft flannel, sleepy eyes, a tattoo of a fern leaf on his wrist. We matched on a Sunday night. He told me his name was Eli. He was 31, worked as a freelance illustrator, and lived about 15 minutes from me. He sent me a picture of his studio, a second bedroom with 3 bookshelves and a large glass tank in the corner. She's shy, he said, referring to the snake. But she's good company. I wasn't sure how to respond. I've never liked snakes. But I tried to keep an open mind. People love all kinds of pets. I figured if he was responsible and gentle with it, it was just a quirky detail. He asked if I wanted to get a drink later that week. I said yes. We met at a bar near my apartment, low lighting, good cocktails, quiet enough to talk. He arrived wearing a canvas jacket and a crossbody bag. Nice to finally meet you, he said. He smiled, then opened the bag. Inside was the snake. A small, pale corn snake with rust-colored markings, coiled in a clear plastic container with air holes. This is Persephone, he said, like he was introducing a friend. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. He placed the container on the table. She gets anxious when she's alone too long, he said. But don't worry, she's contained. The bartender did a double take. I tried to act normal. We ordered drinks. I tried to focus on the conversation. He was interesting, in a rambling, intense kind of way. Talked about Greek mythology, reptile heating lamps, and how he'd once designed an entire deck of tarot cards based on venomous animals. I nodded, sipped my drink, and tried not to look at the snake. When he asked if I wanted to feed her, I said no, thank you. He teased me, said I was emotionally distant. I laughed awkwardly. When the bill came, he insisted on paying. I said I had to head home, early morning. He asked if I wanted to see his place. Just for a minute, he said. Persephone likes new people. I declined. He didn't push, but his smile faded. Maybe next time, he said. I walked home, half smiling at the strangeness of it all. Later that night, he texted. You have a good energy. Persephone was calm around you. That's rare. I didn't respond. The next morning, he sent another. I had a dream you were holding her. She wrapped around your wrist like a bracelet. I muted the conversation. 2 days later, I came home from work to find him standing on my porch, holding the same crossbody bag. I froze. He waved. I think Persephone escaped, he said. I blinked. What? I was cleaning her tank, and she slipped out. I think she might have followed your scent. I stared at him. She's really smart, he added. They can track heat and pheromones. I took a slow breath. Eli, you can't just show up at my house. He looked confused. Hurt. I thought you'd want to help. I don't, I said firmly. You need to leave. He didn't move. I pulled out my phone. He saw and stepped back. Okay. No need to call anyone. I just thought. You thought wrong, I said. He walked away, muttering something about people being closed off. I locked the door, closed the blinds, sat on the floor, and tried to slow my heart down. That night, I texted a friend and told her everything. She told me to report him. I didn't yet. I wanted to believe it was just a weird misunderstanding, that he'd leave it alone. But the next morning, there was a note tucked under my windshield wiper. She still hasn't come home. I think she's with you. I reported it. The officer raised an eyebrow when I explained. A snake? Yes, I said. But it's not about the snake. They filed a report. The next day, I found a shed snakeskin on my doorstep. I bought a camera. Eli never came back. I don't know if Persephone ever existed. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But I still check under my bed before I sleep. It's strange how the worst years of your life start like any other. There was no warning. No sense of dread. Just another morning making coffee. Another text from Amy asking if I'd remembered to buy wipes. Another diaper changed half asleep. One sock still on. Our son Ben was 6 months old. Our cat, Bugs, was 10. Amy and I had been together for 5 years, living in a rental house just outside of town. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a life, the kind you build slowly, one target run at a time. She was always tired. So was I. But we were new parents. That's what everyone said. We were supposed to be tired. We were supposed to snap at each other and forget to say thank you. We were supposed to fall asleep on the couch while the baby monitor blinked quietly in the corner. I thought we were fine. She started working again around month 7. Just part-time. A few shifts a week at the coffee shop she'd worked at before the pregnancy. She said she needed to feel normal again. I supported it. I took on more of the nighttime feedings. I stayed home Saturdays while she drove across town to help her mom with errands. I didn't question it. I should have. The first sign was Bugs. He stopped sleeping at the foot of our bed, started hiding under the crib, yowling when Amy entered the room. He'd always been a skittish cat, but this was different. Maybe he's just stressed, she said. With the baby and everything. But he wasn't stressed around me. Only her. Then she changed her passcode. She used to hand me her phone all the time, to look at recipes, to answer texts. Now she kept it face down, even when it buzzed. She started sleeping with it under her pillow. I mentioned it once lightly. She rolled her eyes. You need to chill. You're acting paranoid. I let it go, because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe that the woman sitting across from me, the one who'd screamed during childbirth, sobbed with joy when Ben first laughed, whispered, "I love you," with cracked lips and half-closed eyes, was already halfway gone. 3 weeks later, she was gone completely. I came home from work to find the house half empty. Her clothes, her cosmetics, the diaper bag, the baby monitor, gone. So was Bugs. There was no note, no message, just a text, sent 20 minutes before I walked in the door. I'm leaving. Don't call me. I'll be in touch about Ben. I called anyway. Straight to voicemail. I called her mom. She hung up. I called the police. They said it wasn't kidnapping, she was the mother. Unless there was a custody agreement, there wasn't anything they could do. I sat on the floor of Ben's empty room, holding a single sock, and tried to breathe. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I filed for emergency custody. My lawyer told me it could take weeks. Months. That courts tend to favor mothers, especially when the child is still nursing. But she's not nursing, I said. She stopped at 4 months. He nodded, but didn't look hopeful. I kept the nursery ready. I washed the crib sheets every Sunday. I vacuumed the carpet so it wouldn't gather dust. I left Bugs' bowl on the kitchen floor. I didn't hear from her for 41 days. Then came the letter, typed formal, from a family law firm in the neighboring state. Amy was seeking full custody and child support. I wanted to scream. Instead, I handed it to my lawyer. We filed a response, requested shared custody, offered proof of paternity, photos, receipts, witnesses. The court date was set for October. In the meantime, I found out about the other man. She didn't tell me. Her sister did, accidentally, during a brief messenger conversation where I tried to find out if Ben was okay. He's fine, she said. Amy and Derek take good care of him. I stared at the screen. Who's Derek? Her boyfriend. You didn't know? No, I didn't. I found their social media accounts. Amy had blocked me, but I saw enough through other profiles. Photos of them at the zoo. A blurry shot of Ben in a stroller. A caption that said, "Family Day." I almost threw my phone. Instead, I downloaded every photo as evidence. The court hearing was surreal. Amy wore a blazer. Her hair was curled. She didn't look at me once. She claimed I was emotionally unstable, that I struggled with work-life balance, that I had no bond with the child. I sat there, listening to her lawyer spin our life into a cautionary tale. I wanted to shout. I changed his diapers. I held him through colic. I sang to him at 2 a.m. while you stared at your phone. But I stayed quiet. I let my lawyer speak. We reached a temporary agreement, joint custody, alternating weekends. Supervised visits for the first month. I saw Ben for 2 hours that first Saturday. He didn't recognize me. He cried when I held him. Amy watched from the corner of the room, arms crossed, saying nothing. When I handed him back, she sighed. He's used to Derek now. I wanted to ask about Bugs. I couldn't find the words. Over the months, the custody schedule stabilized. I got to see Ben every other weekend. He started recognizing me, started reaching for me. Then, one day in December, he called me Dada. I cried in the car afterward. Amy never brought Bugs. I asked once. She shrugged. He's better off with us. But he's my cat. She raised an eyebrow. He sleeps on Derek's chest now. Seems like he chose. I filed a small claims suit for property theft. It went nowhere. The court said pets were marital property. And since we were never married, it was a civil matter. I posted flyers. Offered money. Tried to find a way to get him back. Nothing worked. I started sleeping with a stuffed cat on my bed. Not because it helped, but because it reminded me that I'd lost more than a relationship. I'd lost the quiet parts of my life. The ones that didn't cry or demand bottles. The ones that just purred softly beside me when the world got too loud. It's been 2 years now. Ben is 3. He knows who I am. He laughs when I chase him around the park. He tells me about preschool, about his stuffed dinosaur, about how Derek makes the best pancakes. I nod and smile and pretend I'm not bleeding inside. I haven't seen Amy in months. Everything goes through the court now. She still asks for more child support. Still complains that I don't understand what it takes to be a single mother. I don't argue. I just pay what I'm told. Sometimes I dream about Bugs. In the dream, he's curled up on the windowsill, sun on his fur, tail twitching slowly. I reach out to pet him, and he looks up at me with those green eyes, and then I wake up, and the room is quiet, and empty, and cold. They say time heals, but time also dulls, smudges the edges of memory until you're not sure what was real and what you just wanted to be real. I keep Ben's drawings on my fridge, and a photo of Bugs on my nightstand. I used to think I had a good radar for people. I wasn't naive. I didn't get swept up in fantasy. I didn't fall for lines or let charm override instinct. I knew what boundaries looked like, and I knew what it meant to protect them. At least, I thought I did. His name was Evan. We matched on Tinder early one Saturday morning. I was curled up in bed with a cup of coffee, swiping half-heartedly between emails and laundry. His profile caught my eye, not because he was especially attractive, though he was, but because he looked normal. Like someone you'd see at a farmer's market or working behind a laptop at a cafe. His bio said, full-stack developer. I write code and try to cook. Looking for something real, no pressure. Bonus if you love dogs and sarcasm. I messaged first. What's your best dish, chef? He replied within minutes. Taco night. I make my own tortillas. That's not sarcasm. We chatted all day. He was funny in a dry, intelligent way. Not performative, not overly flirtatious, just quick-witted and curious. He asked thoughtful questions about my work, nonprofit admin, my hobbies, true crime podcasts, painting, hiking, even my least favorite movie genre, found footage horror. I liked the way he listened, or seemed to. By Monday, we'd exchanged numbers and moved to texting. By Wednesday, we were FaceTiming. By Friday, he suggested we meet. I hesitated. He lived 45 minutes away in a neighboring city. I wasn't comfortable meeting at night, and I didn't want to invite a total stranger to my apartment. But he offered a compromise. We could watch a movie at my place, and he'd bring dinner. No pressure. He'd leave by 11. I said yes. I told myself it was fine. I had pepper spray, neighbors on both sides, and a dog, an aging but loyal retriever named Goose. I sent a friend his name, number, and a photo. If I go missing, blame Evan the tortilla guy, I joked. He arrived with Thai food and a bottle of sparkling water. No alcohol. He said he didn't drink much, which I appreciated. He was polite, funny, and smelled faintly of sandalwood and laundry detergent. Goose liked him immediately, which felt like a good sign. We ate on the couch, watched a comedy special, talked about everything from AI ethics to childhood injuries. He was easy to be around. Familiar somehow. When he left just before 11, he hugged me and said, "Let me know if I passed the background check." I laughed and said I'd let him know in the morning. We texted late into the night. And the next day, And the next. He didn't push for anything. If I took hours to respond, he never complained. He sent me photos of his home-cooked meals, his cluttered workspace, his dog, a scruffy terrier named Pixel. We made plans for him to come over again the following weekend. This time, he stayed longer. We cooked together. He asked to help with dishes. He rubbed Goose's belly like they'd known each other for years. When I went to shower, I told him to make himself at home. I left the door cracked, as I always did, since Goose liked to nap on the rug nearby. When I stepped out of the steam, towel wrapped around me, I saw the reflection in the vanity mirror. The door was wider than I left it, and Evan was standing just beyond the frame. Not in the hallway. Not calling my name. Just watching. He looked startled when I turned. "Oh, sorry," he said quickly. "I was just looking for the bathroom again. Got confused." I nodded, uneasy. "It's the other door," I said. "Down the hall." He apologized again and disappeared. I told myself it was nothing, that maybe he really had just gotten turned around. The hallway was small, and the doors were nearly identical. But something didn't sit right. After that, I noticed little things. The way he glanced at my locked bedroom door when I left the room. The way my phone would sometimes vibrate with unknown login attempts. The way Goose, who rarely barked, growled once when Evan reached to pet him. Still, I didn't want to overreact. He hadn't touched me without permission. He hadn't said anything inappropriate. He was generous, respectful, and always left when I asked. Then one night, I came home from work and found my bathroom cabinet slightly open. Inside, my phone charger was gone, and a small USB drive I didn't recognize was plugged into an outlet near the sink. I stared at it for a full minute before pulling it out. I didn't plug it in. I took it to a coworker, someone in our IT department, and asked him to check it on an isolated system. It contained dozens of images. All of me. In my apartment. In the shower. In bed. Getting dressed. Dozens of angles. Most of them taken from barely hidden locations. A gap in the closet door, the vent above the bathroom, the corner of my bookshelf. I couldn't breathe. I called the police. They took a report, collected the drive, took photos of my apartment. They found a tiny camera taped behind the vent, so small I never would have noticed. Another one behind the mirror in my bedroom. All of them were Wi-Fi enabled, streaming to a remote server. They told me it would take time to trace them. I blocked Evan, reported him on every platform, sent screenshots and statements to Tinder, who said they'd investigate the account. He disappeared. No texts. No calls. No knocks at the door. The police never found him. His apartment had been vacated. The last name he gave me wasn't real. The phone number was prepaid. Pixel, his dog, had been stock photos. The food photos? Pulled from Pinterest. Everything he showed me had been a performance. Everything I believed was constructed. I changed the locks. Moved apartments. Got a security system. Goose slept beside my bed every night. I used to think the worst thing that could happen in a relationship was cheating. It's not. It's realizing the person you live with, the person you laugh with, the person who holds your hand in grocery store aisles, doesn't just disagree with you. They don't see your child as a person. They see them as a problem to fix. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When I met Rick, I wasn't looking for anyone serious. I'd already gone through the exhausting post-divorce dating cycle. The serial brunchers, the guys who said, "I'm a nice guy" too often. The ones who thought being a dad to my daughter Zoe meant they'd get husband perks without husband responsibilities. Rick seemed different. We met at a friend's birthday dinner. He was charming in a quiet, observant way. He asked thoughtful questions. He didn't flinch when I mentioned I had a kid. In fact, he smiled and said, "Raising a person? That's the most important job in the world." He wore flannel shirts, read biographies for fun, and once helped a stranger push a stalled car out of an intersection while on the phone with me. I told myself, maybe this is the kind of man I need. Grounded, solid, mature. Zoe was 10 when Rick and I started dating. She was cautious at first, she always is, but she warmed up to him faster than I expected. He brought her puzzles, asked about her favorite books, cooked waffles on Sundays, and let her pick the toppings. He said, "I don't want to be your dad. I just want to be someone she can count on." I believed him. After a year, he moved in. The first signs were small. He didn't like when Zoe watched certain YouTubers. Too much attitude, he said. He thought she wore leggings too often. She's growing up fast. You don't want to send the wrong message. He rolled his eyes at her sarcasm, said she was borderline disrespectful. I told him she was just finding her voice. He said boundaries were important. I agreed, up to a point. But the point kept moving. When Zoe turned 13, she started experimenting with makeup. Nothing wild. A little concealer for the occasional breakout. Lip gloss. Mascara. She watched tutorials and practiced blending eyeshadow with the focus of a scientist. It became a hobby, something she did for fun, not for attention. At first, Rick ignored it. But one evening, when Zoe came down for dinner wearing a dusty rose lip tint and softly winged eyeliner, he stared like she'd shown up in fishnets and stilettos. He didn't say anything right away, just blinked. Then, after dinner, he pulled me aside in the hallway. "Are you really okay with that?" he asked. "With what?" "The face paint. It's makeup, Rick. She's 13. It's not permanent." He frowned. "It sends a message." "No, it doesn't. It's just a form of expression. A phase." "You mean like when kids start rebelling and sneaking out and lying to their parents?" His voice was steady, but there was a warning in it. I crossed my arms. "She has straight A's, she's polite, and she still hugs me before bed. If eyeliner is the hill you want to die on, be my guest." He dropped it. Or so I thought. The next week was quiet. Tense, but quiet. Zoe wore less makeup around him. I didn't tell her to. I didn't need to. She noticed the way he looked at her when she wore it. The way his mouth tightened. The way he stopped asking how her day was. She started doing her mascara in the bathroom at school. I hated that. One night, I found her wiping it off in the car before we got home. "Why are you taking it off?" I asked. She shrugged. "He doesn't like it." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "You don't need to hide parts of yourself to make someone else comfortable." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Zoe had a big presentation at school, her first group project in front of the entire class. She'd spent a week preparing. That morning, she came down in her school uniform with a touch of shimmer on her eyelids and a glossy pink lip. She looked poised. Happy. Rick took one look at her and said, "You're not going to school like that." Zoe froze. "Why not?" "That's not appropriate. You're 13, not 23. It's just lip gloss. It's too much." I stepped in. "Rick, it's fine. It's a special day. She's giving a presentation." He raised his eyebrows at me. "You're enabling this." I almost laughed. "Enabling what?" "Confidence." He scoffed and walked out of the room. Zoe's hands were shaking as she packed her bag. I kissed her forehead and said, "You look beautiful. And you're going to crush that presentation." She beamed. But I saw the flicker of anxiety in her eyes. That night, Rick was quiet during dinner. Stiff. After Zoe went to bed, I tried to talk to him. "You blew that out of proportion," I said. "She's turning into someone I don't recognize." "She's growing up." "She's growing up too fast." "You think makeup is making her grow up too fast?" He leaned against the kitchen counter and said, "You're too relaxed. That's why she doesn't respect boundaries." I stared at him. "You mean your boundaries?" He didn't answer. I went to bed angry. So did he. The next day, everything fell apart. I came home from work early. Zoe had a dentist appointment. As I unlocked the front door, I heard shouting. Zoe was crying. Rick's voice echoed down the hallway. I dropped my bag and ran upstairs. Her bedroom door was open. Rick stood in the middle of the room, holding a trash bag. The floor was littered with makeup brushes, torn pages from her notebooks, broken compacts, and ripped posters. Zoe sat on the bed, clutching her backpack to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted. Rick turned to me. "She lied to me. She brought makeup to school. She didn't lie. She didn't owe you an explanation. She disrespected the rules. There were no rules. I told her last week, no more of this nonsense. And I told you it's not your call." He dropped the bag. "I'm trying to raise her right. She's not yours to raise." The silence that followed was thick and final. Zoe looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. And I knew. I turned to her. "Go pack a bag." She didn't ask why. She just moved. We stayed in a hotel that night. I texted my sister and asked if we could crash at her place for a while. She said yes. Zoe barely spoke. She sat next to me on the bed, watching cartoons with the volume muted. Her face was blank. I ordered room service. She picked at her fries but didn't eat. Later, when I tucked her in, she whispered, "Is he going to come here?" "No," I said. "He won't." "Promise?" "I swear." I returned to the house the next morning while Rick was at work. I took photos of the damage. I gathered our essentials. I left his key on the kitchen counter. Then I called my landlord. The lease was in my name. I told him Rick and I had separated, and that he'd be moving out. He asked if I was safe. I said yes. He said, "Good. Let me know if you need anything." I filed for a restraining order later that week, not because I thought Rick would hurt us, but because I wouldn't take that chance. He sent a string of texts. Apologies. Accusations. Please. Threats. I blocked his number. It's been 6 months. Zoe's room at my sister's house is covered in stickers and LED lights. She wears makeup when she wants. She's learning to do eyeliner better than me. We still talk about that day sometimes. Not often, but enough. She says she never hated Rick, just feared him. I think that's worse. It's strange how the worst years of your life start like any other. There was no warning, no sense of dread. Just another morning making coffee, another text from Amy asking if I'd remembered to buy wipes, another diaper changed half asleep, one sock still on. Our son Ben was 6 months old. Our cat, Bugs, was 10. Amy and I had been together for 5 years, living in a rental house just outside of town. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a life, the kind you build slowly, one target run at a time. She was always tired. So was I. But we were new parents. That's what everyone said. We were supposed to be tired. We were supposed to snap at each other and forget to say thank you. We were supposed to fall asleep on the couch while the baby monitor blinked quietly in the corner. I thought we were fine. She started working again around month 7. Just part-time. A few shifts a week at the coffee shop she'd worked at before the pregnancy. She said she needed to feel normal again. I supported it. I took on more of the nighttime feedings. I stayed home Saturdays while she drove across town to help her mom with errands. I didn't question it. I should have. The first sign was Bugs. He stopped sleeping at the foot of our bed, started hiding under the crib, yowling when Amy entered the room. He'd always been a skittish cat, but this was different. Maybe he's just stressed, she said. You know, with the baby and everything. But he wasn't stressed around me. Only her. Then she changed her passcode. She used to hand me her phone all the time, to look at recipes, to answer texts. Now she kept it face down, even when it buzzed. She started sleeping with it under her pillow. I mentioned it once lightly. She rolled her eyes. You need to chill. You're acting paranoid. I let it go, because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe that the woman sitting across from me, the one who'd screamed during childbirth, sobbed with joy when Ben first laughed, whispered, "I love you," with cracked lips and half-closed eyes, was already halfway gone. 3 weeks later, she was gone completely. I came home from work to find the house half empty. Her clothes, her cosmetics, the diaper bag, the baby monitor, gone. So was Bugs. There was no note, no message, just a text, sent 20 minutes before I walked in the door. I'm leaving. Don't call me. I'll be in touch about Ben. I called anyway. Straight to voicemail. I called her mom. She hung up. I called the police. They said it wasn't kidnapping, she was the mother. Unless there was a custody agreement, there wasn't anything they could do. I sat on the floor of Ben's empty room, holding a single sock, and tried to breathe. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I filed for emergency custody. My lawyer told me it could take weeks. Months. That courts tend to favor mothers, especially when the child is still nursing. But she's not nursing, I said. She stopped at 4 months. He nodded, but didn't look hopeful. I kept the nursery ready. I washed the crib sheets every Sunday. I vacuumed the carpet so it wouldn't gather dust. I left Bugs' bowl on the kitchen floor. I didn't hear from her for 41 days. Then came the letter, typed formal, from a family law firm in the neighboring state. Amy was seeking full custody and child support. I wanted to scream. Instead, I handed it to my lawyer. We filed a response, requested shared custody, offered proof of paternity, photos, receipts, witnesses. The court date was set for October. In the meantime, I found out about the other man. She didn't tell me. Her sister did, accidentally, during a brief messenger conversation where I tried to find out if Ben was okay. He's fine, she said. Amy and Derek take good care of him. I stared at the screen. Who's Derek? Her boyfriend. You didn't know? No, I didn't. I found their social media accounts. Amy had blocked me, but I saw enough through other profiles. Photos of them at the zoo. A blurry shot of Ben in a stroller. A caption that said, Family Day. I almost threw my phone. Instead, I downloaded every photo as evidence. The court hearing was surreal. Amy wore a blazer. Her hair was curled. She didn't look at me once. She claimed I was emotionally unstable, that I struggled with work-life balance, that I had no bond with the child. I sat there, listening to her lawyer spin our life into a cautionary tale. I wanted to shout. I changed his diapers. I held him through colic. I sang to him at 2 a.m. while you stared at your phone. But I stayed quiet. I let my lawyer speak. We reached a temporary agreement, joint custody, alternating weekends. Supervised visits for the first month. I saw Ben for 2 hours that first Saturday. He didn't recognize me. He cried when I held him. Amy watched from the corner of the room, arms crossed, saying nothing. When I handed him back, she sighed. He's used to Derek now. I wanted to ask about Bugs. I couldn't find the words. Over the months, the custody schedule stabilized. I got to see Ben every other weekend. He started recognizing me, started reaching for me. Then, one day in December, he called me Dada. I cried in the car afterward. Amy never brought Bugs. I asked once. She shrugged. He's better off with us. But he's my cat. She raised an eyebrow. He sleeps on Derek's chest now. Seems like he chose. I filed a small claims suit for property theft. It went nowhere. The court said pets were marital property. And since we were never married, it was a civil matter. I posted flyers, offered money, tried to find a way to get him back. Nothing worked. I started sleeping with a stuffed cat on my bed. Not because it helped, but because it reminded me that I'd lost more than a relationship. I'd lost the quiet parts of my life. The ones that didn't cry or demand bottles. The ones that just purred softly beside me when the world got too loud. It's been 2 years now. Ben is 3. He knows who I am. He laughs when I chase him around the park. He tells me about preschool, about his stuffed dinosaur, about how Derek makes the best pancakes. I nod and smile and pretend I'm not bleeding inside. I haven't seen Amy in months. Everything goes through the court now. She still asks for more child support. Still complains that I don't understand what it takes to be a single mother. I don't argue. I just pay what I'm told. Sometimes I dream about Bugs. In the dream, he's curled up on the windowsill, sun on his fur, tail twitching slowly. I reach out to pet him, and he looks up at me with those green eyes, and then I wake up, and the room is quiet, and empty, and cold. They say time heals, but time also dulls, smudges the edges of memory until you're not sure what was real and what you just wanted to be real. I keep Ben's drawings on my fridge, and a photo of Bugs on my nightstand. I used to think you could outrun someone if you were fast enough. If you packed light, left early, changed your number, deleted your social media, and didn't look back. I believed that distance meant safety, that a state line could act like some invisible shield. I was wrong. His name was Caleb, and for a long time, I thought he was the love of my life. We met in college, nothing special, just 2 people who happened to be at the same orientation dinner. He was a junior, I was a freshman. He had this magnetic way about him, quiet, but not shy. He made you feel like everything you said was interesting, like you were the only voice in a crowded room. We started dating a few weeks later. At first, it felt like a dream. He was attentive, charming, and always knew what to say when I needed to hear it. When I got homesick, he'd bring me late-night milkshakes and sit on the dorm steps until I felt better. When my dad got sick, he held me while I cried, telling me I didn't have to go through it alone. Everyone loved him. My roommates, my professors, even my mom, who is notoriously suspicious of any guy I brought home, said, "He seems like a good one." He wasn't. It started small. He'd get moody when I went out with friends. Not angry, just distant. Passive. Quiet for hours afterward. Then he started joking about the clothes I wore. "You don't need to dress like that. Who are you trying to impress? You know other guys are watching you, right?" When I pushed back, he'd laugh and say, "Relax. I'm just messing with you." But the comments kept coming. He didn't like my best friend, said she was trouble. He didn't like when I didn't answer texts right away. He didn't like when I talked to other guys, even if they were classmates or baristas or just someone asking for directions. I started changing without realizing it. I stopped wearing certain outfits. I stopped going out. I deleted apps, ignored messages, and told myself I was just being considerate. That's what he wanted. Consideration. We dated for nearly 3 years. The breakup was messy but not dramatic. I just couldn't do it anymore. I told him I needed space, that I wasn't happy, and that we'd grown apart. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just stared at me for a long time and said, "If you go, you'll regret it." I left anyway. I moved to a different city 3 hours away, got a new job at a small nonprofit, and rented a one-bedroom apartment above a bakery. It was the first time I'd lived alone. I bought plants. I painted the walls a pale green. I went to spin classes and started reading again. I even went on a few dates, nothing serious, just enough to feel like myself. Then one morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "Green looks good on you." I froze. I'd worn my new green jacket that day. The one I'd ordered as a kind of post-breakup rebellion. Too bright, too bold, too unlike the girl I'd been. I looked around, heart pounding. I was standing in line at the coffee shop near my office. People everywhere. No one looking at me. I deleted the message and told myself it was spam. A week later, I saw him. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe it was someone who just looked like him. Same build, same walk, same gray hoodie. He was across the street, looking down at his phone. I ducked into a bookstore and waited 15 minutes before coming out again. No one was there. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then came the emails. Different addresses. No subject lines. Just quotes. Lyrics. Inside jokes from college. Lines from movies we used to watch. "This is the part where you say you're sorry. You always said you hated the ending. I know you miss me." I blocked every address. I changed mine. I started locking every window, every door, even during the day. I told my friends. They said I should get a restraining order. But I didn't have proof. No threats. Just vibes, unsettling, persistent, unprovable vibes. Then one evening, I came home from work and found a box on my doorstep. No label. No postage. Just a plain brown box with my name written in red ink. Inside was a photo of us from college. One of those photo booth strips. We were both laughing, eyes closed, arms tangled. On the back, someone had written, "Still the best night." I moved again. This time, I didn't tell anyone where. Not even my mom. I found a sublet in a different state, packed only what I could fit in my car, and left in the middle of the night. I changed my number. Deleted every account. I even dyed my hair and started going by my middle name at work. For a while it worked. I felt anonymous. Invisible. Safe. Then 3 months later, I saw the listing. It was a rental across the street from my building. A charming unit with lots of natural light. The name on the application? Caleb M. Just an initial. Just enough. I went to the leasing office and asked about it. They couldn't give me details. Privacy laws. But the woman behind the desk gave me a look, a small, knowing look, and said, "You might want to be cautious." That night, I packed again. I didn't wait to see if he moved in. I didn't give notice. I just drove. I've done that 4 times now. For cities. For jobs. For different versions of myself. Each time, I get a little quieter. A little more careful. I use cash when I can. I keep my phone off unless I need it. I don't post. I don't share. I don't linger. It's been a year since the last move. I live in a small town now. Population under 9,000. I rent a guest house behind an older couple's property. They don't ask questions. I work remotely, order groceries online, and go for walks at dawn when no one's around. Sometimes I still get that feeling, like someone's watching, like a breath on the back of my neck. I remind myself it's just fear, old trauma echoing through new walls. But then I remember the box, the photo, the way he said, "If you go, you'll regret it." And I know better. Some people don't let go. They don't accept silence. They follow. They wait. They move in across the street and pretend it's a coincidence. They learn your new name, your new job, your new favorite coffee shop. Let me just start by saying, I don't go on dates with guys who own guns. That's not a political thing, it's a personal boundary. If a guy mentions his Glock in the first 5 minutes, I'm out. I've had enough weird experiences with guys who think, I protect what's mine is romantic. It's not. It's just unsettling. So naturally, I found myself on a date with a man who owned a gun. Let me explain. His name was Jordan. We met on Bumble. His profile was minimal in that way that makes you think he's either extremely cool or hiding something. One photo was him hiking, one was him holding a puppy, and one was him standing on a beach with sunglasses and a baseball cap, face barely visible. His bio: looking for someone who laughs at my bad jokes. Bonus points if you like dogs and don't mind the outdoors. Harmless, right? He opened with, Do you prefer bowling alleys or bonfires? I replied, depends. Are we talking cozy bonfire or the kind where people bring acoustic guitars and sing off-key? He said, cozy. No guitars. Just mores. We talked for a few days. He was chill. No pressure. No creepy compliments. He asked about my dog, my job, my favorite late-night snack. He told me he worked in IT, had a rescue mutt named Milo, and really liked night drives because they made the world feel quieter. I liked that. He suggested we meet up at a park near the bowling center, just outside town. It had a trail loop, a duck pond, and picnic benches. He said it would be casual, just a walk and maybe some fries afterward. I agreed. I wore jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. Practical. Comfortable. Nonchalant. When I pulled into the lot, he was already there, leaning against his car with a takeaway tray of iced coffees. He held one up like it was a peace offering. For the lady, he said. I laughed. You don't know how I take it. You look like a vanilla cold brew kind of girl. I raised an eyebrow. Do I? He handed me the cup. Took a guess. If I'm wrong, there's a backup. He had a second tray in his car. 2 more drinks. I couldn't decide if that was thoughtful or strange. We walked the trail, sipping coffee. He told me about growing up with 4 younger siblings. I told him about my failed attempt to foster a senior cat who hated everyone, including me. We laughed. It was easy. We ended up sitting on a bench near the pond. The sun had just dipped behind the trees. Lamps were flickering on, casting long shadows across the grass. It was peaceful in that suburban, slightly eerie way. The kind of quiet that makes you notice every twig snap. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was some dumb teenager playing a prank. A guy in a clown mask, standing at the edge of the trees. Just standing. Watching us. I pointed. Okay, that's not normal. Jordan followed my gaze. His entire body stiffened. The clown didn't move. Just stood there, holding something long in his hand. I squinted. At first, I thought it was a stick. Then I saw the glint. It was a machete. Jordan stood up slowly. Stay behind me. I blinked. What? Get behind me, he said again, more urgent this time. I did. The clown started walking toward us. Not fast. Just steady, like he had all the time in the world. Each step deliberate. He said nothing. The mask was expressionless, white face paint, red lips, hollow eyes. Jordan reached into his jacket and pulled something out. It was a gun. I froze. Is that real? I whispered. Yes, he said. Licensed. The clown kept walking. Stop right there, Jordan shouted. No reaction. He raised the gun and fired once, into the air. The sound cracked like a firework. Birds exploded from the trees. Somewhere behind us, a car alarm went off. The clown stopped, then turned and ran. Full sprint, back into the woods, vanishing between the trees. Jordan lowered the gun, breathing hard. I was shaking. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded. That was a gun. Yes. You had a gun. I wasn't going to let anything happen to you. I didn't know what to say. He called the police. Reported the incident. Gave a description. They said they'd send a patrol car to the area, but that it was probably a prank. A prank with a machete? I said. Hard to prove, the dispatcher said, according to Jordan. Unless someone's injured. We waited 15 minutes. No one showed up. No clown. No cops. Just the 2 of us standing at the edge of the trail, adrenaline draining, trying to process what had just happened. He offered to walk me to my car. I hesitated. I won't touch you, he said. Promise. I nodded. As we reached the lot, I looked back toward the woods. Nothing but shadows and rustling leaves. We stood by my car in silence. Then I said, You could have told me you carried. He looked down. I don't usually bring it on dates. But something felt off tonight. I studied his face. What do you mean? I don't know, he said. I almost canceled. I had this weird dream last night. Woke up sweating. Figured I was just being paranoid. But when I saw that guy, I knew. I got in my car and locked the door. He stood back as I started the engine. I'm sorry, he said. I just wanted you to feel safe. I nodded once, then drove away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the mask. The way it stared. The slow walk. The machete. I called the police the next day to follow up. They said they'd patrolled the area and found nothing. No footprints. No sign of a suspect. Likely a local prankster. I didn't find it funny. I unmatched Jordan the next day. Not because he did anything wrong, but because I realized something. It didn't matter how prepared you were. How polite. How cautious. How clever.